Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Alex Dvorkin and I'm a managing partner at 4D Capital. We specialize in a very unique mathematical approach to the stock market where we analyze the market and individual stocks in multidimensional space. And when we do, perfect order emerges. On top of that, we've developed a number of very powerful timing indicators over the past couple of years. And when we combine both of those factors together, we can very often make very accurate forecasts in both time and price, and we can do it on multiple time frames. Whether it's short-term, long-term, doesn't really matter. I personally believe our work is nearly identical to what Jim Simmons was able to accomplish at Renaissance Technologies, if you're familiar with Jim. So our firm's objective, very quickly, is to identify stocks that will 2x, 5x, 10x. So we're essentially looking for the next NVIDIA, Apple, Bitcoin, Tesla, and so on and so forth. And who isn't, correct? But we have a very special weapon associated with this search, our very powerful software that we've developed around our mathematical work. It is able to calculate the entire market, and it is able to make projections for very important upcoming bottoms. We don't necessarily participate on the short side because it's a lot more difficult to make money and your gains are limited. So we're only looking for bottoms, even though we can look for tops as well. And we're looking for very specific stocks that have very clear bottoms upcoming, and then subsequently our software is able to calculate what those stocks will do going forward after the said bottom is achieved. So we're able, for example, scan the entire S&P 500, we can identify stocks that will bottom soon, and then 5x, 10x, and so on going forward. And today I'll give you a perfect illustration of one of such stocks, which is CarMax. And we can take a look at how we do an analysis, what CarMax is going to do going forward in terms of finding a very important bottom. As you know, the stock has suffered quite substantially over the last couple of years. And then subsequently, we're going to be able to tell not only where that bottom is, but what that stock is going to do going forward. So let me show you the chart. I'm going to explain this very quickly for those who are not familiar with our work. For those who are familiar with our work, please skip forward maybe 3 to 4 minutes and you end up in the middle of analysis. So basically what you see here on the chart in front of you, these triangles, up and down triangles, are what we call cycle composites. And this is a very simplistic visual representation of very complex mathematical concept. So we scan the chart back and we identify composites in three-dimensional space, and then we project them into the future. And what makes matter even more complicated is that there are usually, so the bottom composites are obviously responsible for the bottoms, and top composites are responsible for the tops. What makes things a little bit more complicated, there are multiple composites running at any given time. So I use Dow Jones as an example always, and there are 2 bottom composites and 2 top composites on the Dow Jones running at the same time. But if you know how to put them together and how they work, you can essentially replicate what you see on the 2-dimensional time and price chart in terms of the stock market move, the actual move itself. So you'll get very, very close. And then from that, you can make projections well into the future. Okay. So we like to say that cycle composites get us into the neighborhood of where an important turning point is going to occur. Let's say plus or minus 1 to 2 months, depending on the length of the cycles. The lines you see in the chart in front of you is what we call cycle clusters. And cycle clusters are essentially also, these lines are very simplistic representation of very complex mathematical concepts. So we do something very similar. We have developed a number of proprietary cycles over the years, and we scan the chart in 3-dimensional space, and then we identify those cycles, and then we project them into the future. And this is what's important. What we found over the years is that typically important turning points, or perhaps not so important turning points, depending on the time frame you're looking for, if you're looking at short-term versus long-term, it's completely different. But let's assume we're looking only for the long-term turning points. So these cycle clusters essentially indicate that a turning point doesn't happen when any particular single cycle arrives, but when there's a multitude of cycles arriving at the same time. Let's say we have a day when everything indicates there's going to be, for example, a bottom, as is the case here in CarMax, and our cycle work suggests that there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cycles arriving on the same day. Well, if those are cycles are longer-term cycles in particular, then you can rest assured that there's going to be a significant turning point. So that basically the once again, the composites give us a neighborhood, and cycle clusters give us the exact date. So I'll give you an example. On the Dow Jones, March 6th, 2009, as you know, it was a very important bottom for the market. At that time, we have, within a 3-day period of time, we had 15 long-term cycles arriving at the same time. And anybody doing this type of analysis would be aware that a very important turning point is going to happen there. And that's, of course, what happened in the market rallied ever since. So what is it telling us? So as you can see, CarMax had been suffering for quite some time. Post-COVID run-up, sales slumps, problems, all sort of things, economy is falling apart, cars are not selling, all of that good stuff. Doesn't really matter from a fundamental perspective. What this particular chart is saying is the stock is going to bottom at approximately, so this composite identifies March of 2026, and then we have a number of cycles associated with this. So for example, this one, I think we have 3 cycles arriving at the same time around this date. Now, we typically do our hands-on analysis as well, and I'm just going to mention it here. So this is one potential for the bottom in terms of time. The other potential arrives in the 3rd quarter of 2026, so a couple of months later. And this has to do with us actually getting our hands dirty and going in there and making sure that this particular composite work and cycle work is correct, and we've identified that this one is indeed correct, but there's a secondary one that most likely will line up with the overall stock market and anticipated bottom at that time. So how do we know? We'll know in terms of timing of whether or not it's going to be this one or the other one, depending on the price. And when time and price converge, as is going to be the case here, I'm going to talk about price here in a second. So when time and price converge, then we know that if it converges at this time juncture, we know the bottom is being put in place. But if it's not, then we know that the secondary bottom that is scheduled to arrive in, let's say, 3rd quarter of 2026 is going to be the actual bottom. So we're just going to have to wait a little bit and not get ahead of ourselves and wait for that particular price. So we also calculate, in 3-dimensional space, the dots you see here. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense for you, but these are all potentials for where the stock is gonna, for example, bottom. Exact point. So, for example, if we click on this one, it will show you that it's $33.45. Or, for example, if it's this one, it's $25.69 plus or minus a little bit of variance. Now, in our work, we can dismiss it. Most of these points, we can typically, actually, our work allows us to end up with 1 or 2 points, sometimes 1, which give us a very clear indication of where the actual bottom is going to be. So with that in mind, let me just shift gears very quickly and show you just a different representation of our 3-dimensional calculations. Now, once again, I'm pretty sure this doesn't make any sense to you, but it makes a lot of sense for us. So I've done most of the work for you, and I indicated where the bottom is going to be. So if you can imagine, it's I'm not showing you an exact number, and that's by design. You can sign up for our 30-day free trial associated with our work and take a look at those numbers if you so inclined in both time and price. But what this is projecting and why this is so important, it's projecting the bottom into this area, let's say approximately $30 plus or minus $5. And then that's the power of our 3-dimensional software analysis. Our software can calculate in both time and price what this particular stock or any other will do going forward once this particular bottom is achieved. So as you can see, it is saying that once the bottom is achieved at, let's say, approximately $30 a share plus or minus $5, CarMax will go much higher into this area at the very least. But if you're familiar with our work or my videos, you know that darker green regions represent high probability, high mathematical probabilities of us reaching into that area. But whether it goes to, from 30 to 200 or from 30 to, $250 a share, it doesn't really matter. That's a massive gain within a relatively short period of time. How long of a short period of time are we talking about? Let me go back to the other chart very quickly, this one. So once this bottom is achieved, we have 2 peaks here. We have a mid-cycle top. So I typically talk about fast-moving stocks, and this is a very good representation of that. So from this very important bottom, the stock will surge into this mid-cycle top. And that move is going to be very powerful, very quick. I wouldn't be surprised if we go from like $30 to $100 a share within a couple of months, okay? and then it will settle down and then trade around within a certain trading range, and then it will continue to go on into this particular top, which is scheduled for 2029, and that at that juncture in 2029, it will achieve that price of $200 a share or $250 a share. Yes, it's a little bit longer, but think about, well, actually it's not that long. It's only 3 years between those two dates. And a return of 500% or more is very much, well, I would imagine anyone would take it, because it's a huge return within a relatively short period of time of, let's say, 1 to 3 years. Okay, so that's how we analyze stocks. That's how we are able to pinpoint such locations and figure out all these stocks. Now, we have a lot more opportunities like that in our service. Once again, we have 30-day free trial associated with it. All you have to do is go to our website or go to the link in the description of this video, click on it, request it. We'll set you up, no strings attached, no credit cards, none of that stuff, and you'll get a treasure trove of information, not only in terms of these fast movers, super equities, mega cap stocks, the overall stock market. It's just, there's so much information. I think your mind's going to be blown away. So that's point number one. Point number two, we have a webinar coming up next Friday. I believe it's going to be October 13th. Don't quote me on that. Actually, let me check the date here. Well, it's recording the video, so it's not going to let me open it up. So next Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, whatever that date is going to be. And let's see what else. Yeah, so during the webinar, it's very important to mention that we talk about the composition of the overall stock market. We typically shy away from doing that, but we'll talk about it there. And also, just as importantly, we showcase our software, and we show you how we calculate the market in multidimensional space. So that's pretty much it for today. As I mentioned, or as you've perhaps seen, we starting a new series that is called Countdown to Armageddon, because not only is our work able to predict what the overall stock market and individual stock is going to do, it's the same composition or the same mathematical work is allowing us to determine exactly when a nuclear exchange between Russia-China alliance and NATO members will take place. So we're going to be covering that as well on a daily basis, or at the very least we will try if I'm not too busy. That's it for today. Thank you very much. We'll be back with another update tomorrow. I believe we're going to be looking at Costco. Costco has been more or less behaving as anticipated, so we'll just update that forecast. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.